Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Get Ready to Rumble event in which the Corrupt Troll is added to the game. So let's get into that. So this week's kind of interesting as it brings in the highest starred kingdom we ever had. With the two troops that ended up getting added, the Corrupt Troll and the new legend that ended up coming in through event keys, we now have 17 stars on Darkstone, making it the highest faction in the entire game as far as stars is concerned. As far as this Corrupt Troll and the Tacet it has, the red blues are used for several things that are pretty decent, and it is an epic, so you'll be able to get these for as cheap as 200 each, 400 per pack. So definitely a good time to stock up on them. Main things you'd use on them earlier on in the game are Deep Boar, Ice Goblin, Merlion, and Vanguard. And later in the game you put it into Mirage Queen, Bonnie Rose, Lady Mirana, and Tesla for the most part. As far as this troop, it is pretty bad, unfortunately. It will probably have some viability, but basically what it does is create a mix of green and purple gems. And then based on the amount of green and purple on the board, we'll end up creating that many gems. So for example, let's say there is 9 purple and 7 green on the board. That would be a total of 16. So it's going to do a mix of green and purple to some amount that will end up being 16. This is relatively bad because it doesn't have any kind of additional side effect on it. Also, it's likely not to ever really get a spawn beyond about the mid-20s or so, due to just the number on board normally being around 13 or so, normally a little bit less than that. And the biggest issue it's going to have is the same issue that all double spawns have, and that is double spawns will spawn over each other. So all these greens will spawn over all the purples, and all the purples will spawn over all the greens. So overall, not really going to be that good. The reason why most of the weapons work that are similar to this double spawn is mainly because if you have a full team of it, they're creating around a 30 mix, whereas this generally is not going to be able to ever reach 30. It's going to be mid to low 20s at best, as far as when it normally casts. So overall, not going to be too good. It also conflicts with Mirage Queen's colors. It's the exact same color as Mirage Queen, so you will not be able to use that to half mana start it. If you are going to half mana start it, you're going to use it with Titan. There isn't anything particularly broken with this I am aware of at this current moment in time, and with how inconsistent double gem spawns are, I'm pretty sure it's not really going to be used for much. It does have 25% score reflect, which might be good with the new reflection spell that's or effect that's coming in next patch, but because it doesn't really have any life gain and just a small amount of regen, probably just going to remain as a relatively useless troop that's only really used to upgrade Darkstone and farm out his Tradestone. Other than that, as far as other events this week, we do have a bunch of Battle Crashers for International Dog Day for a couple days. They're running a bunch of Q-Sifts, will end up giving you extra bit of souls whenever you kill them in PvP or an Explorer. So we'll have that for the next few days. As I mentioned in the event key drop table, we do have a new legend. It is a relatively useless legend, but you still might want to get it again for kingdom upgrading purposes. This kingdom does have the most amount of troops of any kingdom in the game, so it is the easiest to get the 5-star, 10-star, and just upgrade it in general. Other than that, one other thing is the 10% to Darkstone and 10% to Giants. This is a relatively useless combo as there is almost no Darkstone Giants in the game. If I'm not mistaken, the troll that just got added is the only one. This is one other one that I'm forgetting of. But yeah, there's going to be like pretty much no overlap with that, so not really going to be that good. And speaking about not that good, you do get 40 souls whenever you use this in PvP, but it's going to be so slow and many options and just not worth the 40 souls. So I would not advise doing that at all for this event week. As far as event keys, as I mentioned, this is a Darkstone week. This is both good and bad. It's probably a week I would say overall to skip. Of course, we did end up getting a new legend, but it's a relatively bad legend. If we go over to Darkstone, we can see a good majority of what the drop table is for this event key drop table. Keep in mind that 5 of these are not in the drop table. The 4 that have All-Seeing Eye next to them, which you just get from the All-Seeing Eye faction, as well as Troglodyte, are all not in the drop table, but everything else that you see here is. The only really noteworthy thing that this kingdom has, for the most part, is the Mythic, and that is the Possessed King. This is a relatively relevant Mythic for 2 reasons. One is it's pretty good in Delves because of its multi-transform, as well as for its high amount of mana accumulation. But the other reason is it is required to get Darkstone to 10 stars or higher, and it is currently capable of going all the way to 70 stars, the highest starred kingdom in the entire game. The more relevant part about that, though, is that Darkstone is a magic-based kingdom, and magic bonuses are the best bonuses that you can get from a kingdom, and he is required for that 10-star to get that bonus from him. That's the biggest thing that he's really used for, even if you don't really plan on using him much for Delves, even though he is a decent option for that, or mana generation teams, of which he's also a good option for that. But he's basically the only drop, and given that he has a 0.11% chance off of event keys, you likely wouldn't really be opening that many event keys, as you would have to open upwards of 800 try to get him. You could try it. If you might have noticed, I actually do have a second copy. I did open about 250 event keys earlier in order to get Gruz to Mythic without using any orbs, and in doing so, I did get a Possessed King randomly. So that was pretty convenient. So you can get lucky, though do keep in mind it can take upwards of 800, could even take upwards of 1,000 and still not get it. So could be somewhat worth it if you can get it lucky off of it, maybe while and try it and get the new legend, but I wouldn't go too far with it. If you've already gotten everything in the kingdom pretty much mythic, I wouldn't really bother going too far and using event keys, as most of the drops that you're going to be getting from this kingdom are completely useless in most situations. Anyways, other than event keys, let's move over to, of course, we have standard Guild Wars this week. Not really much to mention there, except, of course, Corsair Hero class, which we'll be going over soon. Will be pretty viable for Blue Guild War Day. Other than that, it's pretty much the same Guild Wars as always. This event week is kind of special, though. Right now, we have a All Seeing Eye faction on this Tuesday. And normally, this wouldn't really be that relevant, whatever Tuesday faction is. You just do the normal factions and just kind of go on your way. However, it is extremely relevant today, mainly because they made a change a couple weeks back, at this point almost probably about a month ago, in which faction pets now count towards delve levels. And the main reason why this is relevant is, well, Darkstone. Darkstone right over here, why am I going there? Darkstone right over here, in order to get 17 stars, does require you to have 2 level 20 pets. And if we go and check the amount of pets that are here, there's really only one viable way to have 2 level 20 pets, and that is, of course, to have the Trog Pole and to have the iPod, because most people probably did not buy the Ninja Cats up to Mythic, as that would be a waste of gems. That costs like 3,000 gems or so to do that on a pet that doesn't keep reoccurring on just a cosmetic one. So yeah, most people would just have to go down the route of getting the iPod maxed. However, in order to get the iPod to Mythic, there is an indirect requirement basically that was just added, in which it is now essentially required to 70-star Darkstone. You would have to go and complete out the entirety of the delve of All Seeing Eye to 2,500. And that is because on the faction rewards, of course, to be able to get enough copies of the iPod to get it to Mythic, the only way would be to max out the faction. And to max out the faction, you have to do level 500 pure faction. And there are 2 viable ways to do level 500 pure faction. You could, of course, just upgrade your treasure hoard and just throw a lot of attempts at it. Generally, with about a 150, or more so probably 200 treasure hoard for this faction, you would be able to attempt pure faction for this delve. It might take you several dozen attempts, but you would eventually get it. But, of course, the much easier way is to wait towards a faction event, which is today, and just go and throw a bunch of gems on it. It would cost around 2,000 gems, give or take a few hundred. Probably take a little bit higher than that, especially since a lot of people will probably be going for it today. But it'll cost up around 2,000, and you would just go through the entirety of the faction event. You could either rush through it and just go straight down the middle, or actually do all the rooms in order to get a bunch of loot. But regardless, it is basically required now to do level 500 pure faction, as well as the entirety of the faction completion, to 2,500 total renown, in order to get the iPod, which is now required to 17-star the Darkstone, as well as anything further if it ever gets more. And until they add another pet, that is the only way to do that. So anyone in late game who has a lot of spare gems laying around, you might want to do that today, because you won't be able to do this again for a couple months. So yeah, keep that in mind. Other than that, as far as the rest of the week for events, this Wednesday, we have a new pet. Of course, it was International Dog Day, I believe it was yesterday. They have a little pack thingy for if you want to go buy that, and they also have a free pet thingy. It's completely cosmetic, but we're getting a dog dragon on this Wednesday. I personally feel like the cats are cuter, but it is still adorable. Other than that, this Thursday we will be getting a class event for Plaguelord. Plaguelord's a pretty decent hero class. It's kind of like Titan, except more magic-based defensive, since it has disease to stop their cast and also has 20% direct spell reduction. Overall, it's generally a weaker version of Titan, but there are situations where it is actually better than Titan. Also, if you haven't already gotten the weapon off the hero class, it is one of the best weapons in the game, so you definitely want to get 250 wins on that hero class, or you can simply spend some gems on that event to get it automatically if you don't want to get 250 wins on the hero class. And this Friday, we were going to be getting a new faction, and yeah, they'll be coming this Friday. It's mostly going to have gold-based troops. 2 of them are going to be somewhat decent. One is one that does a bunch of skull spawns based on how much gold you have, and the other one is going to gain a bunch of stats based on how much gold you have. The skull one will probably be able to be used without Cedric, just with a leprechaun, whereas the AoE one that will keep getting a lot of stats is likely to be required with a Cedric. but I'll be able to go over more on that on Friday when we end up getting a new faction. Other than that, as far as Soulforge does not have any particular mythics that are good this week. Maybe Yasmin's Chosen. I personally feel like Wild Queen is better ever since they gave it that buff a little while back. However, if you still want Yasmin's Chosen for Guild War purposes, it is a decent option for Guild War, particularly Green Guild War, though there are purple combinations with Green Seer that also end up working out pretty well. So generally Green or Purple Day if you are going to use it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best of options. However, if you are lacking options, it is something to consider for either Green or Purple Guild War week or day this week. Other than that, there are several legends that are actually good. Generally, I wouldn't really advise crafting legends, but if you have been looking for any of these, they are relatively good ones. Web Spinner are very noteworthy in that it does triple damage to basically everything in the entire game. One of the best skull spam first slot troops in the entire game. Biggest issue it has is it's pretty flimsy and can die pretty easily in first slot. However, its skull spam damage output is one of the best in the entire game, and yeah, it's pretty good for that reason. It's also somewhat good on Green and Blue Guild War Day. It's a rather inconsistent option, however, it can kill relatively quick when it works well. Tesla is a great option to have. You pretty much auto-win all pet battles if you're still struggling with them currently, and upscales very well because all of its damage is based on how much armor is in play, and the higher the enemy's armor is, the more damage you'll do. It's also boosted on your own ally armor, however, more often than not, particularly if you're fighting a content that is harder or higher in stats than you, you're likely using this more so to boost ratio off the enemy stats, not so much your own. And yeah, really good true damage options, one of the best true damage options in the game actually, particularly for when you lack other damage sources, since it scales based on the enemy stats pretty well. And other than that, it also has King Avrillon. He's probably the least relevant of these three. However, he is pretty good, relevant for Guild War Week, and that he's often used with the Orb Weaver hero class in order to make very, very annoying teams with a few other elves. Exact composition can vary depending on what you want to build. However, King Avrillon is a pretty popular choice for that. So if you're looking to beef up your Orb Weaver, this is a good way to do so if you want to make a really annoying defend team for Guild War, as it is a Guild War week after all. Though he's probably the least relevant of the three. If you could only go for one, I'd probably lean towards Tesla if you're earlier in the game, or Web Spinner if you somehow don't have him later in the game. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Soulforge. Oh yeah, and also don't forget the weapons. Always a good idea to pick these up. Jar of Eyes for the Tuesday event. One of the better faction weapons in the game. You can either get this by doing the faction and buying it up there, or simply crafting it here. Doomstones are completely useless, but if you want to buy them for completion purposes, you can do so. The Bloody Drinker, I actually forget what this even does. Oh yeah, it's useless. That's what I thought. But this thing you're generally never really going to use, since Mang and other similar options are better. However, again, if you want it for crafting purposes, it is the newer one of the weapons that is around this week. Other than that, there's Darkstone as well. Again, a useless weapon that you would never use. However, for completion purposes, you might want to get it. So there are those four. The Jar of Eyes being only available for today on this Tuesday, and the other three being available for the rest of the week. Of these, I would definitely advise getting Jar of Eyes, either buying it through the event with gems or getting it before the day expires. Otherwise, if you have to craft only one of the other three, I'd probably go for the Blood Drinker. However, again, you might want to get Darkstone and Doomstones still, just for having them, if you haven't already gotten them. But overall, nothing really too good, other than Jar of Eyes, of course. Jar of Eyes, pretty popular option due to its summon that it has, as well as mana accumulation. It's basically an alternative version of Mountain Crusher that works just ever so slightly differently. So, next order of business, let's go show a couple teams. And why do we have such a weak team here? I don't want to have to waste gems, but I think we have enough right now that it won't matter too much to show it for a video here. Of course, we get a really annoying team after. But let's go and just repick it real quick in order to show a couple teams. Before I go into teams that actually require us to battle, let me go show a couple teams throughout the event week. So there are several things that you can run for the faction event. The faction event, of course, is going for today, and will be only lasting for this Tuesday. So if you want to go and do pure faction and everything, you want to go and get that done as quickly as possible, or just rush through them if it's later towards the day. But of course, if you're just doing the lower end of it, the restriction for the delve is green and blue, so you can just run standard truffles if you're only going up to the free amount and you're not going any further than that, just to get all the rewards. If you're going for the higher rate of factions, I'm personally going to be using Mountain Crusher, High King Iron Gut, Zugoth, and Possessed King. If you don't have Zugoth, you can end up replacing with Apothecary. If you don't have Possessed King, you can replace it with Sylvania Mora. There is no replacement for High King Iron Gut, so hopefully you can get that soon. And Mountain Crusher, everyone should probably have. And you can just run it with Titan. You can also run it with other hero classes, so Titan will end up most likely working out the best. And yeah, that's pretty much what you run for it, and go from there. and you'll be able to go all the way to 500 with that. And then once you finally reach 500, of course, you'll have to do Pure Faction. And oddly enough, this is I believe, the only delve in the entire game currently where the most viable Pure Faction team is actually the exact faction team you fight on the final battle. So you basically mirror the exact final battle, which is one of the reasons why you need higher stats for the faction, generally at least level 200 delve if you're doing it without potions, or with potions you could go a little bit lower with that and get it done pretty easily, by potioning up, of course. But yeah, a Clarion with the other Clarion, followed by Watcher and X-Raider. This first Clarion you use and just keep spamming it in order to steal a bunch of attack from the enemy before they steal it from you. Also, so their skull damage isn't absurdly high. The other Clarion you get off before they get theirs off in order to convert the brown to green. This can not only mana generate for you, but also prevent the enemy from being able to do the same for themselves. Watcher Mother is actually one of the things that makes this delve pretty possible to do on Pure Faction, and that is the fact that it resummons these two other Clarions. Which one you specifically get is completely random. However, it will keep replenishing your first 2 slots, so even if you keep dying on the initial battles before you get to the final fight, as long as you have Watch Mother and X-Raider alive, you pretty much have your full team, because Watch Mother will just be able to replenish your first 2 slots and get them right back to normal. It actually probably has one of the most interesting unique 4 in the game, I would say, as far as factions work. It was one of the first factions, so I guess they thought it out pretty well, which more of the factions would actually have better synergy than this. I was kind of expecting more factions would, but I'm actually surprised how few have this solid of a synergy. But yeah, they really did it right with All Seeing Eye. And other than that, they have Transform All Yellow to Skulls. This, again, you obviously want to get before the enemy, and this is the main way that you actually win, is you use a Clarion's really high attack that you end up stealing from the enemy in order to use X-Raider's high damage output with those skulls in order to kill out the enemy. And that's the basic premise, and you keep replenishing with Watcher, and this just basically denies the enemy's other Watcher just so they don't end up getting their mana off, just to deny their brown to green convert. And yeah, that's pretty much how you run this team. Obviously, hero class doesn't matter because it doesn't use one, and you even set it to the banner of the faction. It would technically be better to use a +2 green, +1 yellow, -1 brown. However, the banner doesn't exist, so you just use the faction's banner. It's pretty much the same thing. Just it slightly blocks your blue off the other one instead of feeding yellow directly to it. But the banner doesn't exist, so this is next best thing. And yeah, that's all you have to run for that. Other than that, this Thursday, of course, we have Plaguelord class. Oddly enough, you just spam Thralls. Thrall is a troop that you generally don't use that often, but it's one of the best combos in the game, oddly enough. It destroys a really high amount of gems, particularly later in the game, and it even has a chance to extra turn automatically, even if you don't get one, as long as there's 13 plus reds on the board. And he has purple link, so if you use 3 of them, well, if you take a purple without even surging, you will gain full mana. That's pretty convenient. You can use pretty much any hero class you want and any weapon you want. Ideally, your hero class that has half mana start. I just said it's Plaguelord because, well, it's a Plaguelord event, so might as well level Plaguelord more if you haven't already. And the weapon you use pretty much doesn't matter. You can use Dawnbringer, you can use War and Peace. I just showed War and Peace. This has a cheaper option here for when you copy and paste it. But yeah, Dawnbringer would probably be a little bit more optimal, I would say, with like Titan or, you know, something similar. But yeah, any AoE weapon that will hit all enemies is perfectly fine. You just throw a triple Thrall. You can get more creative with it, but that should be a minimum enough if you're just doing even all the battles, even if you're going all the way. That should probably be able to kill. You might want to switch it up if you're going all the way, like if you're going to be spamming all the way to like leaderboard or something. But if you're just doing the free battles or going a little bit further than the free battles, this should be perfectly fine for a good majority, if not all of it. And if you really had to, you could just go Titan Mang with triple Thrall, and that's going to be super safe. A little bit slower, but still a super safe option to kill it all out with. Other than that, 2 teams I want to go show, both of which I wouldn't really advise using for the most part. Just kind of something to show off these 2 new troops and what exactly they do and what they could potentially be used for. So this troop that we're about to be using right now, I absolutely love the concept of this troop. However, the only real big issue with it is, well, this loading screen right now. That's the big issue with this. Hello, loading screen. Do you want to maybe work today? But anyways, this troop has a multi-bleed on. There it goes. Wow, what was up with that loading screen? But this troop, the Gruz, the Undefeated, ends up having a multi-bleed. This is the first instance of multi-bleed in the game, and this has a lot of potential. Bleed, of course, is a mechanic that is almost completely unused at this moment in time. However, it is really strong, oddly enough. It places multiple, or basically how Bleed works is it does 1, 3, 6, or 10 damage to an enemy per turn, true damage, based on how many stacks of it you have on the enemy. Currently, everything except for this only places 1 bleed at a time, but as you can see, we can actually multi-bleed with this. He doesn't even have a 1 option. He will do 2 to 4, meaning you could potentially get, after 1 single cast of him, 10 true damage per turn onto an enemy. This will cleanse at its normal rate at 10%, 20%, 30% cumulative over time. However, he does have a curse. So what this will basically do is allow the bleed to last twice as long. So instead of doing the normal 10, 20, 30, 40, and so forth, it'll end up doing the 5, 10, 15%, 20%, so on and so forth, as it ticks upwards. So, yeah, it has a lot of potential, this combination. The only real big issue with it is it's a relatively high mana cost for what it ends up doing. And for whatever reason, I do not know why, I guess they think it might just be too overpowered or something, but every single bleed option that currently exists in this game, including the one that they literally just added, does not have true damage, which I don't understand why, because obviously true damage with bleed would be really good, but for whatever reason, everything that has bleed is physical damage and applies the bleed, which is such a conflict of interest, because obviously if you're doing bleed, you want to be doing true damage, as that's the whole premise of bleeding them in the first place. But I don't understand what their logic is there. But for that reason, he's pretty useless. If that was true damage, that'd be a completely different story, but it is physical damage. And he also gains 8 mana when an enemy dies. This isn't too relevant. I like this premise as well. We do need better on-death mechanics, though. I feel like every single on-death thing, like whenever you kill an enemy to gain some kind of benefit, they're pretty much all underwhelming currently within the game, so it'd be cool if we see some better ones. I like the premise of this. It's just not going to be viable in this particular troop, just because his ability isn't that viable. But of course, that premise of gaining mana when getting a kill is could be used into stuff in the future. Same as that multi-bleed. I just don't feel like it works on this troop, even though in theory it could be very strong. So right here is going to mana generate with that, getting some bleeds off, obviously. Every single extra turn we do, doing even more bleeds, and we'll be able to stack that into even more bleeds. Also, one interesting thing about this, which I believe will work, you may notice here that this troop has Impervious. It has immune to all stats effects, Devour, and Mana Burn. However, there's a really weird mechanic with Curse and stats effects. For whatever reason, if I'm not mistaken, Bleed is the only stats effect that will take effect on an enemy after they are cursed. So for example, if you Essence of Evil something, which does every stats effect in the game, I'm not sure if they finally fixed the order on this, but what will happen, or at least what has happened in the past, I don't think I've tested it since this version, but what would happen in the past is they would only get cursed and bled, because for whatever reason, I believe it's coded in a way where it's coded in order in which they were added, and Curse and Bleed were the most 2 recent stats effects in the game, and apparently just added Bleed after the fact, or did that deliberately, just so Bleed would kind of work better, I guess, I'm not sure, but for whatever reason, Bleed is basically the only thing that will take effect after this. So if we... Oh, he is stealthy. Fail! Well, never mind. I forgot he is stealthy. Well, let me try killing everything on the team except for him. But what should happen is if we hit him, he should actually bleed. If you do that with any other stats effect, that will not happen. But for him, it actually does. That's pretty convenient. Does this have higher durability? I need to go tap him and kill that. I definitely want to try getting that to work. But I completely forgot he had stealthy. That's a fail. That's not the first time, nor will it be a last that I forgot something has stealthy. I do that way too often. Okay, let's see. He has more no, he still, wait. Who has more durability? Yeah, you still have more durability. We need to damage you somehow. You need to damage you to be lower durability than him, without that going and dipping down below the other one. Oh, what's the easiest way of doing this? I guess we just try for skull chance. Didn't get it. Come on, give us a skull randomly. Go. Weaver. Is that fine? Yeah, I guess that's fine. Oh, wait, Oh, I can just cast this twice. Why don't I just do that? That'll work better. So I'm going to do that. I can now do this to... Oh, well, that's still fine because we boost ratio based on the HP there. So now we just need to kill that thing out, and then we can target that and kind of show what I wanted to mention real quick. But we'll get that down. Of course, taking bleed per turn. That should be taking 6 true damage per turn. Can't cast Mountain Crusher right now because of the thing on it. Now we can, so we'll go for it. Tina, don't you dare get a cast off. Looks like he is. As long as that doesn't kill... What do we need it not to kill at this point? I guess our last slot? That's unfortunate because it's actually pretty much in one-shot range with how it's about to apply its damage. I don't believe we have any way we can kill it right here, so I'm going to try for pure luck off the sky. Nope, didn't get double green. Maybe we'll get skull distracted. No, he killed it! He killed it! What are you doing? Are we going to retreat just to be able to show it? Well, we'd have to find Impervious to be able to actually show what I wanted to go mention. I guess we can go find Impervious real quick. How hard could it possibly be to find Impervious? Found one. There we go. Well, we found one. As long as she doesn't Dragon Eye us. Just out of safety's sake. Let me, just in case. There's like 100% chance he's just randomly going to Dragon's Eye us. Especially since he's running Gimlet team. The whole premise of that team is to try to do it immediately. So let's move that so that gets converted. Just so I can go show what I wanted to show, even if it ends up not being able to win this battle. I just want to show that at this point. But basically, because we'll be able to hit through Impervious to throw those bleeds at it. What should end up happening here, unless they've changed the mechanic in the most recent patch, but I don't believe they have. So apparently they did change how transforms work. Transforms no longer count as kills for whatever reason. Didn't find that out until yesterday. But apparently they changed that mechanic in the most recent patch, and I didn't even realize it. But what should happen here, which only applies to bleed currently, I don't believe any other stats effect it really works properly for, is this troop right here has Impervious. However, the order in which this applies is Curse and then Bleed. For whatever reason, it goes all the other stats effects, then Curse, and then Bleed. So what should happen here is, you can see, he actually did get bled. With other stats effects, it doesn't really work that way. However, with Bleed, it does. So you can actually apply Bleed to things that have Impervious with this troop. Things that normally wouldn't be possible because Impervious blocks stats effects. But with the Curse, it ends up being able to be applied. And yeah, and then you just go from there. And it'll just keep ticking it down and works pretty decently. Unfortunately, this troop is still pretty bad. It's because the mechanic in general isn't really that good. If we got things that did more damage, did it for cheaper, did it with board control, it'd be more relevant. But overall, yeah, Gruz, pretty bad. It is very, very underwhelming. I love the premise of it. It's just not viable. What's slightly more viable, though, is this Corrupt Troll. Corrupt Troll is still probably not going to be useful for much. However, the biggest thing that this thing has going for it is that depending on what kind of color synergies we get into the future, it'll have more and more options as time goes by. There's also going to be a really good synergy with Titan, as Titan will be able to half mana start. As I mentioned earlier, we will not be able to use Mirage Queen with this, while you theoretically could, in order to utilize the fact that it creates green and purple, and you can then create those greens into Doom Skulls. The biggest issue that this has is it uses the exact same colors as Mirage Queen, both using red-blue, and due to that conflict, you're likely not going to be using them together. So instead, you can just go Titan and feed a half mana start that way without blocking it. I'm using a Ketris here, which is a mythic, but it's mainly because of how this team ends up gaining stats. One of the few things that actually is viable for it. I generally do try to show these teams without mythics, but this is one of the instances where going mythic is kind of useful here. And also, Ketris is one of those mythics that I do advise, highly advise getting. Probably in the top 5 of things that you should end up getting, just because it's used for a lot of game modes currently. Basically, I didn't really get to show it much because we already won. I can actually win right now just by throwing Ketris, because Ketris is so amazing. But yeah, you basically just cast this. You can cast Lady or Ariel, just gives life to the other thing. You're generally going to gain extra turns. Again, of course, double spawns are pretty inconsistent, so you might not. But the whole premise is that these two can kind of feed into each other, and you can just get all the mana you need. That HP feeds your Ketris, and then your Ketris is one-shots the enemy, and you generally win in 2 hits. Throwing Ketris on 2nd slot, and throwing Ketris again on 4th slot. Is this team particularly viable? No. But as far as this troll is currently concerned, I'm not sure of much else that you could really use it for that would be much stronger than this. Hopefully into the future we might get some pretty good combos, or maybe I missed something that could be used for, so maybe keep an eye on it. But overall, I feel like it's rather average. It doesn't have any particularly good perks, and just not going to be used for much. But anyways, guys, I believe that is everything. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And later today, I will be streaming All-Seeing Eye faction. As I mentioned, All-Seeing Eye, or Darkstone, is capable of being able to reach level 17. However, it does require that max pet. So later today, I'm going to be streaming for several hours in order to go do the entirety of All-Seeing Eyes. So we're going to be going all the way from level 20 to 500 in a single day. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time I'll ever bother doing it in a single day, because more often than not, when a new faction comes out, you have all weekend to do it. You have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. However, if you do want to get All-Seeing Eye level 500 Peer faction, you only have today. So if you are interested in doing that, make sure to do so by the end of the day, because it's not like a 3-day event. It is only for this one day. So as it switches over to the next event on tomorrow, on Wednesday, it will end. So do be wary of that, and be careful of that timer, because it is 3 times shorter than how much time you would normally have to do a entire faction to 500, like when we have one this Friday. Like, obviously the one for this Friday will last for 3 days, but the one today, not so much. Anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.